Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is the Mighty Thor number 373, continuing on my Mutant Massacre series. Again, we got a Marvel 25th anniversary cover. It's by Walt Simonson. Fantastic. Gotta love that detailed Walt Simonson look going on here. So this issue is kind of interesting for Mighty Thor. It's written obviously by Walt Simonson, but it's drawn by Sal Buscema. I think Ralph Macchio was editing, editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. And so I've only done one other Thor video on my channel, but I will say this is kind of fascinating that I've done 3 writers now, Chris Claremont, Louis Simonson, and now Walt Simonson. And all 3 of them have an incredible penchant for jamming as much story as possible into each one of these comic books. It's just a joy. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm going to eventually run out of 80s comics to go over. Because it's going to really suck to not have stories this compressed. Anyhow, I love the opening right here. Here dwell the storied figures of ancient legend, those who were old when the universes were young, or so the minstrel tells us. And the mightiest warrior of all those tales is Thor, the Thunderer, whose magic hammer Mjolnir carries him into the starry fields of night. Ooh, just good stuff, good stuff. But yeah, so Thor is flying through space, heading back to Midgard, aka Earth. He's suddenly struck with something and loses, or becomes weak for a little bit before regaining and trying to figure out what the heck just happened. Eventually wills himself back to New York. One of the things that is kind of fascinating about this issue of the Mighty Thor is how many subplots and sort of setups Walt Simonson jams in this one issue while still tying it into the Mutant Massacre. This is a compact issue. Honestly, it's fascinating to just look at every single page on its own and see how it leads into other comic books. Very cool. So Thor lands in New York, and around this time in the Thor books, he doesn't really know whether his father, Odin, is dead or not. And so he resolves himself to go to Muspelheim to try and find Odin, but he finds in a couple seconds that he's been blocked. He has no way of going there, which is really interesting. He heads back to his old apartment. So I think I did Thor 341, which ironically this issue ties back to 341, despite being like 30 issues away. That was when he recognized that he lost his ability to transform into a human dude, and instead he just kind of walked around as Thor and went under the pseudonym as Sigurd Jarlsson. So he's kind of going around New York trying to see what, because he hasn't been in New York in a while in the book. And he's trying to see what has changed, but he's kind of in a bad mood, so he doesn't necessarily want to go hang out with the Avengers right now. Finds someone being held up in the park and does some heroing work right here. Man, so much happens. Like, we're only like 4 pages in. And also, you get some nice observations by Thor on just the human condition and humanity as compared to his life. You get another setup as we jump back to Asgard for this weapon that the Asgardians are bearing. This is Surtur's sword. We also get a resolution to another plot point from 2 issues ago, where these 2 kids who were rescued by Thor, unfortunately, Volkstad has to give them the very sad news that their mother is gone. Very good writing, by the way, here. Great writing and great expressions by Sal Buscema. Then Thor goes back to the construction site from 341 that I covered last time. Holy crap, it's been like 30 issues. And the foreman there that was hiring him, he kind of remarks and is surprised to see him, and they kind of catch up. And Thor kind of relates to him that things haven't been going Thor's way lately. He kind of puts it that his father has passed away, and that the girl that he rescued back in 341, well, didn't really work out. So the foreman feels bad for him, invites him over to his house to have dinner with his family. And what follows is essentially a couple pages of Walt having a lot of like family fun with Thor. Thor kind of, I think this is, it looks like in a large Italian family, at least by the names anyway. And Thor kind of enjoys his time eating with the family, and this is kind of like downtime, almost like an example of Marvel Comics doing slice of life, right? Which is a genre that is not common in American comics all that much, though very common in Japanese comics, but manga, as they say. But it's actually fairly enjoyable, and my guess is, so again, I haven't read all of the Simonson Thor, so I'm still kind of like trying to catch up to all this stuff right here, but I'm guessing that this is kind of in between two really big high-action arcs. So Walt Simonson's probably pulling a Chris Claremont and having his softball issue. But it's a cool issue. It's kind of interesting to see, and Sal Buscema does a good job with the artwork. Again, you got another setup. This is Balder and Heimdall warning about some things going on in Asgard. There's just like freaking 4 different subplots flowing in through here. Thor takes the family's kids out to the park for a day, and he does a nice little one-page story here. This is like, oh man, like Walt, all these writers were just masters of the compressed storytelling style. It's so good. This is a great story right here. It reminds me of the short story that Chris Claremont did in the Kitty Pryde Wolverine series, where Wolverine like meets Musashi on a bridge, which was pretty hilarious. But this is sort of a folktale kind of short story with Thor yelling at a bargeman, basically this guy running this boat here, to, hey, come and take me across the river. This sort of arrogant, haughty Thor, and the guy running the boat basically tells him, no, you're a fool and you're an arrogant and you're not worthy of being carried across the river. And when Thor gets super frustrated, so he walks around the whole river, meets up and finds out that this is Odin. And it's really his father calling him out for his arrogance, right? Which is a common theme in the Thor comics. But yeah, he goes and Thor kind of levels with the kids and teaches them a good lesson about growing up in life. So this is a great issue in terms of like themes and just how much is in it, despite the fact that there's not really a lot of action till the very end of this issue. So he gets bugged by some frogs, and you get a very interesting scene with Thor talking to frogs and speaking to them, and the frogs are basically telling him what's going on in the sewers with the Morlocks, which is how Thor gets involved in the Mutant Massacre. So he says, hey, you'll have to go back to your parents. I'm going to go find a policeman, blah, blah, blah. And I got to go do some things. And the kids are like, don't worry, Thor, your secret's safe with us. And Thor's like, what? I say thee nay. Well, they kind of have a laugh with it because they're like, yeah, you're not very good at hiding your identity, man. So Thor waves his hammer and sends the kids back home. And then he transforms, and heads down into the sewers with a conveniently located manhole in the park. And you get yet another subplot here with Hela basically brooding right here and planning for some evil things for Thor to deal with later on. And Thor heads down to the sewers, hears Angel screaming as the Morlocks are basically murdering him, heads over to stop them, and the Morlocks jump him and almost overpower him, but Thor, I say thee nay, tosses them out, and they run away once he starts getting serious. Let's be real, Marauders, you're not beating Thor. And he realizes that Angel's been victimized by these guys, so he's decided at this point, it's like, well, this guy here is in trouble. I'm gonna do the Thor heroic thing, and come, Marauders, the son of Odin awaits you. And we find out the rest of this left on a cliffhanger in the next issue of Thor. So overall, interesting issue. It's like 7 different subplots running through this issue. It's kind of crazy, but at the same time, it's still heavily compressed. Good art by Sal Buscema. Still, I mean, it's Walt Simonson Thor. I don't know what more you can say. Legendary run, much like John Byrne's Fantastic Four, much like Chris Claremont's Uncanny X-Men, much like Louise Simonson's X-Factor, and much like Frank Miller's Daredevil. Just pick your book from 1980s Marvel. It's gonna probably be good. Anyhow, that's the review. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you have any comments on the Mighty Thor 373, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.